Hello folks, Vince once again, and today I'm gonna talk about the Nintendo e-reader. The e-reader was a curious little device that attached to your Game Boy Advance, and it allowed you to scan cards and play minigames, and basically give you DLC to certain games on the Game Boy Advance and Gamecube. Think of it as a precursor to the Amiibo feature on the Wii U and Switch. As it turns out, it is a feature on emulators nowadays. And with that said, you only need about two things. The first thing is a Game Boy Advance emulator. You can use either Visual Boy Advance, MGBA, or the Game Boy Advance add-on that's available on Dolphin. And you will need a ROM file of the e-reader itself. Other than that, the only thing you need is the e-reader cards themselves. And while that sounds like a monumental task, it's a lot easier to find a complete collection than you'd think. So, for this mostly complete walkthrough, I will be using MGBA, and I'll be using the ROM file of my actual e-reader that was dumped onto my computer. So, the e-reader will show its intro screen, you just press A, and we're going to choose from the first option, which is scan card, or scan.code. But before we're going to do that, we're going to open up File, and a few options down, we're going to go to scan e-reader .codes. You can also select multiple .codes at a time. It's very useful for those larger games, such as the bigger Pokemon games or the NES classics. And we can choose any which RAW file that we've gotten from the e-reader archive, and the card you chose will instantaneously be loaded in. Now for the example I'm using here, I'm using the short side of a Pokemon Cards .code. The short strips gave you Pokedex details. And while these things are nifty, we're gonna go ahead next on the longer .code strip.
You know who else uses the long strip of the .code?
My mom! Okay, so we will now be using the long strip of the Machop card, and be sure to check which series of cards that your Pokemon comes from, because it'll give you different things. For instance, this Machop comes from the Expedition series. So we'll scan this Machop, and you'll see that we'll need two more cards, a Machoke from Expedition and a Machamp from Expedition, both of them requiring the long strip to be scanned. So we'll go ahead and scan those both, each one at a time during the scan prompt. And there we go, we're able to play a little minigame now. So yeah, you get little minigames like Machop at Work, where you just punch a few boulders and then you evolve into another Pokemon. I hope I get a Macrush. And these kinds of Pokemon minigames were not just limited to just Machop at Work. There are other ones to be found as well. I particularly like this Kingler minigame where you beat the crap out of Magikarp and Goldeen. I gotta say, it is pretty satisfying to get yourself a nice combo. I believe all three of the Machop Evolution cards came with the e-reader starter set, along with a few NES cards as well. Speaking of, let's move to those next, after I show you what happens when you get 100 boulders. Now I'm a true Pokemon master. Up next, we're going to go to the classic NES games. Now, while it was nice back in the day to play classic NES games by scanning cards and getting nice artwork on the cards printed with it, it's unfortunate how quickly this method got obsoleted. And I'm not even talking about NSO or Wii Shop Channel for that matter. The funny thing is that playing NES games on the e-reader was already obsoleted by Animal Crossing on the Gamecube. Like, in the case of the e-reader NES games, you could only have one save file at a time. Any attempts to play a separate NES game would overwrite the previous file that you scanned. And it wasn't even limited to the NES games. Certain downloadables were capable of overwriting it too. So while it is sad that there's not much content involved with scanning all these codes, I'm still gonna play classic Donkey Kong just for the novelty of it. And oh man, that's not looking good. This NES game did not translate well to the Game Boy Advance. Look at that sprite flicker. Now, on a bit of a lighter note, we're next going to check out Manhole on the Game & Watch. Now, while there are probably better ways to play this game, such as the modern and classic versions found in Game & Watch Gallery 1, or a remarkably similar version found in Gallery 4, I can at least say the e-reader version of this game plays just about as well as you'd expect. Again, it's not a particularly complicated game by any means, but it's simple, fun, and only requires 2 scans. Nothing really else more to say here, so we'll move on to the next game. Going back to Pokemon, there were certain other novelties that you could scan your Pokemon cards with. The first being Clefairy's Construction Melody Box. Now, curiously enough, this reminds me a lot of what they would eventually do with the Nintendo 3DS Music channel, where it appears you can mess around with the speed and pitch of the composition that you're working with. There's also Construction Action, an effective build-your-own Pokemon arcade game. This one was pretty novel to me because you could actually play as Pokemon trainers instead of their Pokemon. It's a neat little idea where you have to spend the entire map catching all the Pokemon available. Plenty of remixability is available here, and I gotta say it's kinda challenging depending on what card combinations you use. Also, I like putting in the trainer card first, and then hitting play just so I can see him fall. Bye, Felicia. There's a few other applications in there, but they just mostly act as substitutes for physical items during Pokemon trading card games. Next up is the famed Eon Ticket. This card was capable of getting you Latios or Latias, depending on what version you'd be playing. It would be the version's counterpick to the Eon Pokemon that roamed in your game. For instance, Latias would show up on Southern Island if you were playing Pokemon Ruby, since Latios would be the roaming Pokemon, and vice versa for Sapphire. Now, in order for you to unlock Southern Island, there are a few prerequisites to achieve beforehand. The first of which is to beat the Elite Four on your save file. The second is to head to Petalburg City and talk to this guy right here. He asks about making your own personal trainer profile. For the most part, it was a novelty, but it actually had a secondary purpose. For you see, if you enter in the words, "Mystery Event is exciting," he will recognize that you know this code, and as a result, he will give you the Mystery Event feature located on the main menu. Now you can reset your Pokemon game, and you can boot up e-reader as your second player.
After saving, of course.
This is why I prefer MGBA. Connections are a lot simpler in comparison to Visual Boy. Once you have Mystery Event set up on your Pokemon game, you can now scan in the Eon Ticket. It'll now ask you if you want to load the event. Press A. And now you gotta go find Norman, who will give you the ticket to Southern Island. Now you can head to Lilycove City, and you can present it to the receptionist, where an event will play, and you can finally sail on over to Southern Island. And from here on out, it's pretty much as straightforward as catching a legendary Pokemon. Just remember to be prepared. Also, little fun fact, if you scan the Eon card onto your Pokemon Ruby or Sapphire version, and you decide to mix records with an Emerald account, you can actually send an Eon ticket over to Emerald version, allowing that player to access the event. You can also access a few DLC fights as well. You don't really get experience out of it, but hey, novelty, it's there. And now we'll move on to Super Mario Advance 4, the Game Boy Advance remaster of Super Mario Bros. 3. What made this Mario Advance game so unique was the ability to use e-reader cards to give yourself some extra power-ups in the main game, but there was also a section where you could use certain e-reader cards to play bonus DLC levels. Now, when selecting a file, you will go immediately to Level Card. You'll then be taken to this unique world. Step right into this portal-looking spot and press A. You'll then be prompted to press A on Level Card, shown above left. Once you do, you'll be greeted by a Lakitu, who will wait for you to connect to your e-reader. And it's a little bit different from how you do it on Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire. So now, let's turn our sights to the e-reader side of things. We'll first go to Communication, and then to Game Boy Advance. With everything connected, we can now press A once again, and it'll attempt to connect with the main game. Now at this point, you can scan a level card. The following I have is called the Ol' Switcheroo. So let's scan it, and then Lakita will come back to Super Mario 4. Now we'll play the level. Now, while this DLC is really cool and all, as it turns out, this too has been obsoleted. For those of you unaware, the Wii U version of Mario Advance 4 has all the bonus stages pre-unlocked. Wait. Mario Advance 4? Mario 3?
Yeah.
Wait, they added all the e-reader ones?
Yeah, they added all the e-reader
Oh, that's awesome!
Yeah!
Holy crap! I might actually have to get
Yeah!
that. It's one of the few instances where e-reader content actually got pre-downloaded. Though I can't personally substantiate this for myself, as I never bought the Virtual Console release. Note to self, make a video on the ROM and save files of Wii U Virtual Console. Still, this is a pretty neat thing you can do with your virtual e-reader. But with that all out of the way, there's one last e-reader topic that I wanted to talk about, and that's the Animal Crossing content. Animal Crossing on the Gamecube was huge in the e-reader scene, with over 450 unique cards designed for it, or over 300 if you're an American. There's no doubt that you might have seen a couple of these back in the day, or at least remember the promo card that came with the e-reader. And with that brief synopsis, let's set up our Game Boy Advance to connect with the GameCube. Nowadays, Dolphin currently has the feature to use a Game Boy Advance integrated in the system, and it can also scan e-reader cards as well. And while it is pretty simple to do, I'll instead show you guys the TCP method of doing it. I'm personally going to do it this way to avoid scrambling around the locations of my save files. So what we're going to do is go to Controller Settings, and then on port 2, we're going to click it to show the drop-down menu. And from there, we are going to choose GBA TCP. Now on MGBA's side, we will go to File, and just below New Multiplayer window, we'll look for Connect to Dolphin. It'll give us two options, but since we're doing it on the same computer, we'll just keep it to Local Computer, and once you hit Connect, it should be able to communicate with Dolphin. Now we will go to our first stop, which is the ETM machine located in your post office in your Animal Crossing save game. What we first have to do is to prep the e-reader. At this point, the game will instruct you how to set up your e-reader to the GameCube. And so, on the Game Boy Advance side of the connection, we will go to Communication, and then select to Nintendo GameCube. On the Game Boy Advance side, press A one more time, and then on the GameCube side, when you see Prepare for Communication, you press A when you're ready. This does take a little bit of time, so it'll be about 30 seconds to a minute. Possibly longer.
Saving.
Once it says saving, the download is nearly complete. Your Game Boy Advance should now have a screen that says, Now Standing By. At this point, the e-reader has been prepped, the download has been saved, and you are now able to scan your cards into the GameCube side of things. Now, back on the ETM, you can now choose Read Card. For the most part, this refers to the character cards, but you're also able to use some of the promotional cards as well. I'll personally be using the one that came with the e-reader. Just press A once again when the Animal Crossing game prompts you to, and it'll wait for you to scan a card. The ETM will then tell you that the letter associated with that card will now be sent to your mailbox. The promotional card in question will give you KK Ska. But hey, the promotional card has a bonus attached to it. If you scan it solely on the e-reader, the card will tell you to copy this password and put it on a letter where you can send it to any villager in your town. I'm still not sure if those are O's or zeros. Please note that this does not work at Tom Nook's shop. Tom Nook will even be nice enough to tell you how to do it and repeat the password. So it is capital O. If you are successful, you will end up with a golden stereo. The writing on the letter is a bit confusing. It almost looks like you're getting KK Ska once again. But no, you are getting a golden stereo out of this specific letter. There's also an e-reader feature on the Town Tune Bulletin. You simply press R on your Gamecube controller, and then it will ask if you want to download the program, or just scan the card. But since the application's already downloaded to the e-reader, we can just scan a card right off the bat. I'll personally be using the KK Aria card. Once again, we press A when we're ready, and then Animal Crossing will wait for a card to be scanned. And there you go, a KK song is now your town tune. And there's even one for the Able Sisters, located at the bottom of the map. You do the same thing once again, and this time around you're going to use a clothing design. I personally use Samus Aran's suit and the hero's costume. And there you go, you have yourself your own free designs. And so, with all that out of the way, I believe that's everything I wanted to cover about the e-reader. There's still plenty of other cards I could talk about, for instance the Mario Party e-cards, but from what it looks like, it seems you need more real-life elements to actually play it properly. There's also things like the Kirby Slide Puzzle promotional card, but then again, it's just a slide puzzle. It's nothing too deep. And of course, there's the Japanese cards, which got a lot more stuff. But since I don't play Japanese imports of games, I'm probably not going to talk about it anytime soon. So with that said, my name is Vince, this has been the e-reader, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.
Let's do it.